When you think of a cowboy, a rugged, tough, manly man may come to mind. Cowboys have that can't quit, won't quit attitude. They get the job done no matter how difficult the task may be. They're usually quite brave. Nothing really shakes them. Well, almost nothing. In June 1995, 3 cowboys named Johnny, Bobby, and Mike partnered up together on a new business venture. They took over a 3,000-acre ranch in central Texas. Their business plan was to sublease the land out for hunting. And on the land was a 1-story smaller ranch-style house, 4 bedrooms, a small kitchen, quaint living area. The building was constructed in the 1950s. And after purchasing it, the 3 cowboys moved into the house temporarily, as they got things situated. But on the very first night, the cowboys instantly began to realize they weren't alone in that house. That first evening, just as the men were dozing off to sleep, from the hallway, they all heard loud footsteps. And I mean loud. These footsteps started out quiet, as if they were in the distance, and grew closer and heavier with every step. And from there, every night was restless for the cowboys. The men said the ghostly footsteps were so loud, they were surprised the floorboards weren't broken. That's how unearthly this activity was. As soon as the men turned off their lights for the night, and just as they were starting to doze off, the paranormal activity began. Along with the heavy footsteps, they also began hearing these massive, huge blows onto the walls and ceilings. They described it as if someone was taking a sledgehammer to the place, over and over. Sometimes the men would all hear the activity, and other times the entity would pick on the cowboys one by one. And every night, it would continue until sunup. Nighttime was the most active, as they didn't report anything out of the ordinary during the day. And these kinds of occurrences fall into the realm of poltergeist activity. A poltergeist is a noisy and mischievous type of ghost that will cause physical disturbances such as loud noises. 3 rugged, manly cowboys versus 1 angry poltergeist. Who will come out on top? One especially active night, Bobby awoke to the sound of a huge crash coming from the kitchen. He said it was so loud, it sounded like someone had kicked or thrown all the chairs across the kitchen. Bobby jumped to his feet, grabbed his pistol by his bedside, and went to investigate. He was sure that the room had been flipped upside down. But when he walked into the kitchen and flicked on the light, he was stunned. Every chair was right in place. Nothing had been moved. The cowboys all spoke to each other about the activity, not knowing what other explanation other than it being paranormal. We got ourselves a dang ghost. They didn't know much about the previous owners, but clearly someone was still lingering around the ranch house. And Johnny said he felt the entity didn't want to let the men rest. He said the loud bangs on the walls, heavy footsteps, only began right as the men were falling asleep. Right as they were about to doze off, there would be a huge bang on the wall. One evening, Johnny was alone at the ranch house. The other 2 men were gone for the night. And the entity used this opportunity to up the ante. As Johnny laid in bed, he said he heard a disembodied voice call out to him in a low whisper. Johnny said he heard it, clear as day, and when he sat up, he noticed his room was ice cold. This ghost had these 3 cowboys shaking in their cowboy boots. And this is really scary. Another occasion, Mike woke up around 3 or 4 a.m. to a pain in his leg he had never felt before. His knee was throbbing in agony. He felt as if someone was sitting on it. In immense pressure, he frantically tried to roll off the bed, but said he couldn't move that leg. It was like someone or something had him pinned to the bed. He began waving his arm over his knee, trying to get whatever was on top of him off. And as soon as he did, he was able to get up, walk around the room, and said his leg felt fine. This ghost is making these cowboys weak in the knees, not in the good way. Another night, Bobby woke up around 2 or 3 a.m. to the feeling of someone sitting on the bed with him. The mattress physically pushed down, as if someone was sitting right on the bed next to him. Bobby sat up, admitting he was really scared as the entity had not done that before. Clearly, things were intensifying within the home. It started off with sounds, but now this entity was getting a little more personal, taking it to a physical level. This ghost done sat on me last night, fellas. You can't have that. At this point, the men had all told their families about the haunted ranch house, and out of curiosity, one evening, Mike's sisters Susie and Kelly wanted to come spend the night. It's a family affair. They had all heard about it and wanted to see what the men were talking about. They said they were assuming it would be a little bump in the night here and there, and they could disprove their brother by finding a rational explanation for it. Famous last words. But that night, they got into bed, turned off the lights, and the ladies got much more than they bargained for. As soon as the women closed their eyes, they said the activity started, with hearing a faint whistling sound in the distance. It got closer and closer until it sounded like the entity was right there in the room with them. Something so creepy about someone whistling at night. Whistling during the day? Cool. Whistling while you work? Love it. But whistling late at night? Get out. Bye. Then the women said the loud crashes on the walls and ceilings began. They said it felt like the ceilings were about to cave in. Safe to say it was a restless night for the women. By the time the sun came up, the sisters were packed and ready to leave the ranch house. Mike said, "Y'all want breakfast?" And they said, "No, thank you. It's time to go." A parapsychologist named William Roll investigated the home, although I don't believe he spent the night there. But he did notice the home was built on limestone bedrock, and he theorized the activity could be due to the Peltier Effect. This could be the cause of the strange, loud sounds. This effect occurs when water seeps between underground slabs of limestone and causes them to shift, expand, and contract. He also said the higher electromagnetic field can affect the human mind. And this is true, that it can affect some people physically, but typically these symptoms include fatigue, headache, dizziness, loss of concentration, and nausea. But it doesn't explain what the cowboys experienced inside the home, or the intensity of the activity. Sounds from a settling house, I think we can all recognize those kinds of noises. But from what the cowboys described to me, it sounds like much more than that. Another big question I have is, how does that explain the activity only taking place at night? Only after the cowboys were settled in their beds, ready to go to sleep. How does that account for hearing the disembodied voices, the footsteps, the crashing sounds, the whistling? Waking up to the feeling of the entity sitting on their knees? I could go on and on. I'm just not sure how that would explain everything. Some noises, sure, but not everything. Others argue that the natural environment of the house, sitting on limestone, may give rise to the paranormal disturbances. The address of this ranch was never disclosed, but they thoroughly believed that what they experienced in the ranch house was paranormal. This haunting is so interesting because this entity had these 3 rugged cowboys petrified. I mean, they were fully spooked. They went from yee-haw to yee haunted. Get it? I think ghostly activity turns everyone back into a kid again. It doesn't matter how tough you are, when you hear or see something spooky, you want to run and hide under the covers. But I gotta know, what are your thoughts on this haunting? Do you believe it was paranormal or just some rock settling? Thanks so much for tuning in for this episode and subscribing to this channel. And share Avery After Dark with your friends, family, anyone that you know that loves mystery. Next episode, I've got so much more coming your way. Until then, I'm Avery Ross, and this is Avery After Dark.